Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our ongoing webinar series, Reinventing Oil and Gas Operations with Digital. I'm Candace Miller, Senior Director of Global Events at Birlasoft, and I'm excited to open up today's webinar, the third in the series titled Future-Proofing IIoT-Led Virtual Digital Assets with Network Modernization in the Oil and Gas Industry. If you missed the last two discussions, we will share the links to our past webinars at the end. Today's agenda will cover the need to reassess the network operations in the oil and gas space, why traditional approaches are inadequate, digital twin network for building the future of virtual assets in the oil and gas world, and new innovations required for autonomous operations. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our industry experts. Let's welcome back oil and gas production advisors with Birlasoft's partner, Datasim, Henry Wren and Ed Hernandez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our moderator will be Todd Wolfe, Director of Operational Technology with Birlasoft's Oil and Gas Business Unit. During the session, you can type in any questions you have via the question feature. All unanswered questions will be addressed by email following the session. Todd will now share more about today's agenda and begin the discussion.
Thank you, Candace, and I want to thank everybody that took time out of their busy day to join us, and especially for those that have kind of gone along this journey with us and were able to participate in the first two webinars. This webinar is really going to be exciting in the sense that we're going to be talking about the future network architecture. And prior webinar number 2 was really focused around common architectures, the benefits of that, the best practices, where today we're going to expand, and Ed and Henry are going to be able to share how they see the future architecture looking as you go through this defined strategy around virtual assets. So Henry, I'm going to start off with this question, really talking about the existing process facilities and the network setup. What are some of the cross-functional areas that can be established and done quickly today, right? What are those areas that can quickly be utilized inside the organization and the network?
Referring to your questions, and I would like to start from existing architecture first. Existing architecture, remember, unit operations, bottom, level 0. Then you have a level 1 instrument, level 2, the DCS control, SCADAs, and the level 3 is advanced modules to support the control system. And level 3.5 is the client server type of application, which is what we call a solution. We've been practicing for so many years. And the level 4 is business layer, right? So current practice compared with 10, 15 years ago, they basically moved the client server application from level 3.5 to the business layer because more people want to access it. More disciplined want to access the same information. So, and also database technology is pretty matured. So last 5 to 10 years, go back to 5 to 10 years, pretty much all the facilities, they all have some kind of the database based on the data historian, and that they reside on business layer, right? So how are we going to move from a current forward to the virtual asset vertical integration network, okay, I'm going to call the system. Ultimately, they're going to support IIoT in the future, autonomous operation. And there's a lot of things that we can do quickly as today, not waiting for the complete technology matured and then we implement it. It's not that way. And all built step by step based on the current, and we can improve the connectivity for the IT-OT network. This IT-OT network is not, let's say, real network to the IT. I mean, so from IT, in the parallel is a virtual asset. Think about a virtual asset. You also have a virtual level 0, virtual level 1, virtual level 2, virtual all the way to the virtual level 4, all right? So IT-OT integration means, OT means solution in the OT network. So how are you going to improve this connectivity? That's one thing. Another is create the culture of the cross-function work team to organize all the existing functional operational solutions. They organize them based on the workflow. That's another area can be quick down. Okay, most of the solution today is based on individual functional or disciplined applications. All right. In order to have the vertical integrated virtual asset platform and this kind of application, okay, all kind of skeptical everywhere for their own functions can be organized, and that require IT company can do. Individual software company, no, that's no knowledge they can do that. Okay. And the third, establish the virtual sensor network, because virtual sensor is kind of like a bottom layer, all right, reflect the existing facility, okay, like a pipeline network, plant, wellbore, field network, whatever. And these things can be quickly established or built, okay, is a foundation. And also enhance the workflow. And based on this kind of mindset, based on the production procedures, and optimize this. This is also can be quickly done. And this is also, you can consider as a soft work, change existing workflow, organize them more efficient. These things also ultimately support the digital transformation and the virtual asset. And the utilize the state of art of the cloud technology, cloud edge concept, like a Microsoft Azure, whatever. And also this is something, the Birlasoft platform, whatever, those things can be quickly done because those platform is already in the IT layers, is acting as a plug and play. But we want to extend the vertical down to the operation layer and allow those other solutions can be plug and play. Once you have that, then all the data flow information is consolidated. Then you can do optimization more efficient.
So Henry, you talked a lot about some of the things that might have some of these benefits as you related to the network architecture. Ed, I might turn it over to you and ask a question. You know, as you look at some of your experience and you look at the key benefits and the list of things that it relates to a network virtual platform, what might be some of the key benefits that you might identify and add to that?
Okay, thank you, Todd. I'm going to put forth like in an example, and this is a subsea marine pipeline that ran 170 kilometers under the sea. So I'm going to try to relate to that. So what are some of the key benefits? Well, one of the things that people like to say, and we say, is optimizing. But optimizing can be a little bit misleading. When we talk about optimizing, we really want to say that we want to improve, first of all, the basic operation of how the pipeline is going to be operated. That's very important. And that's kind of one of the basic steps is you got this pipeline, you got gas flowing through it. The thing that you want to do is you want to keep track of the key variables. In this case, for example, we want to track the gas flow rate. Why? Because they have a contract with a customer. They have to deliver a certain amount under certain conditions. And that's very important that they be able to deliver that all the time. If they can't do that, they're severely penalized. Number two is the pressure. In this case, for the pipeline, the pressure is very important because if you stray away from the desired pressure, you can have liquid dropout. And the facility where they were delivering was not designed to handle liquid. So this is it's almost critical because it could shut it down. And also pressure is going to be very important because we're talking about a pipeline and we have a thing like survival times. So if for whatever reason they could not send any more gas because the compressors go down based on the pressure that they have, what would their survival times be? How long could they deliver without having to shut down? And then last of all is temperature again, which is critical for the liquid dropout. And obviously the composition where you want to track important components like the H2S. So that would be the kind of, first of all, the key one is really optimizing the operation efficiency of the facility. Second is what we're going to call systematic integration. And systematic integration is going to give us the ability to evolve, add to it. And what we want to do is we want to be more proactive instead of reactive. So, as you know, being proactive is having a tool that will let you see what's coming down the line. What are some of the potential problems that you can have, and being able to take action before they occur. So, the systematic integration allows you to do that. It allows you to also integrate other tools that do further benefits that at first glance you didn't think of. And like I said in the previous video, many times when we integrate these type of systems, and as we learn from the data that we start gathering, we start seeing things and scenarios that we really never thought about. And that's where the systematic integration is going to come into operation, right? The other one is remote operation. So remote operation, we talked about because now with the COVID issue, we have less personnel, less people to go out there. But it's not only about that. It also, the remote operation lets other groups. And in the case of the pipeline, I'll say that at one point we had a problem with hydrates, and we had to have other SMEs look at the system, and we were able to share them looking at the system, tracking certain variables that were of interest to solve the problem. So remote operation also allows us to have other experts look at the system, right? It's not only just the ability to reduce people. And third of all, I'm going to talk about the case here we talked about robotics. And again, in this vertical of the gas and oil, I think we're really far behind in robotics. And I think I've mentioned some of the simplest applications we can have, but let me give you an example. We had the case where we had an unmanned platform, and in this platform, they had, a number of valves. Well, there was a case where one of the valves was closed, and they didn't realize that until they started seeing the pressure go up. So somebody had to go there and look at the valve and realize that one of these valves had been closed. Now, here's where the whole thing came out to be very controversial. The people in operations said that they never closed the valve. So it got into almost like being a detective. Who closed that valve? Because that valve didn't have the ability to close itself. So it got really so, I don't want to use the word heated, but it got into that phase where like nobody took responsibility for closing that valve. So if we had set a set of cameras on there, we would be able to see and track the events that occurred. As in this case, I think the people were just too scared to admit that they had closed that valve. So again, using robotics, and in this case, maybe just using cameras would help us. And then last of all is we want to improve the production. And by improving the production is meaning that after we set this up and we start seeing some of the events that stray away from normal operation, we want to be able to form a plan. How are we going to be able to solve some of these problems that we have? And like in this case, one of the most important ones is that from time to time, we would have H2S go through. Why? Because, some of the gas treating equipment at times went down, so H2S went through and was going to be delivered, which again was a no-no. So we had to put a plan together and take action. What are we going to do with that gas with high level of H2S? So solution was, are we going to re-inject that? Are we going to dilute that? And also, by having a digital system, we were able to calculate and tell, if some H2S was going to reach the delivery point, how long would it take? And it would also tell us how much time we had to really take action to kind of divert the gas with H2S. So these are basically the benefits. Again, optimizing, systematic integration, remote operation support, robotics, and improved production. And again, as you really set up the system, you will see that all of these that I mentioned, you really start seeing all these details and really start integrating solutions to each one of these.
Excellent. Henry, I don't know, do you have any thoughts around that as well, or?
I just would like to add the one comment is, for the benefit of really, systematic integration, all the functional software together based on the operation production workflow. And this kind of a practice and immediately demonstrate that the values to support the operation, as Ed mentioned earlier, there's a lot of the hidden values or sometimes operation risk. Operator never saw it, and through those integration, they will identify immediately. This is really the benefit.
Okay.
Operation, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on, really kind of dives into my next question for you is, Ed talked a little bit about integration and the complexity with that. And as you guys know, these are challenges sometimes to go from an existing platform to a new platform. So, what's your experience? What would you say around how difficult is it to go from, your existing platform to a new virtual network asset?
Well, I actually wrote a list here, and I would say that there are some standard obstacles here that we have to overcome. And one of the things is, first of all, and I think I mentioned this previously, there are no standards right now. And I think definitely in the forthcoming years, we are going to have to come up with some standards. And I don't think it's going to be any of the service companies, because each one has their own technology, each one has their own vision, and each one thinks they have the best technology. I think it's going to have to be by an association of the operating companies where they get together and do some funding and come up with some standards, because they're the ones who, I guess, get the benefits or the consequences that they must see. So some of the obstacles that I see today is in the field of digital integration, I see a lot of confusion. You go talk to anybody and everybody has a different version and understanding of what it is. So
Right.
that has to be cleared up, a lot of confusion. Each vendor has his own vision. Each vendor will tell you that they have the best technology, they got their own vision. A lot of these solutions are they're really good. I mean, but then the other thing that comes into play is how easily can they be adapted? And really the final question would be is that they turn out to be very costly. Why? Because most of the operators today, they're not set up for it. We talked about the architecture, so they lack the architecture and they try to install this and they find out that, yes, as they go through this, it starts to get very expensive. The other obstacle that I think we have, and we really talk very little, and maybe because we're not experts on that, is the security issues. The security issues have been showstoppers. We haven't talked about that, but in our experience, security issues were showstoppers. And to get around them, it would take time and they could become rather expensive. Another one is the cultural silos. Some parts of these operating companies, some sectors, they don't have maybe the culture, or they're not used to sharing their data. So they're very protective about their data. They don't want to share with another part, even of the own company. So we have to overcome those cultural silos. And really to do that, I think to sell these concepts, you have to do it from very high level senior management. It it involves the people in operations, but you really have to do it from a very high level, because like I said, they're aware, but maybe because of the culture, they're not used to sharing data, and that's going to be a hard push. And then the other one that I see personally is that a lot of times IT, which is going to be heavily involved, IT will take over the project. They'll make all the decisions and they'll see what's best, and they'll leave the final customer at the end with no word, and they'll deliver a product where the final customer had very little participation. And, the final customer will be unhappy because
Right.
it doesn't give them maybe all the functionality, all the data, what they wanted to see. So sometimes you have to involve IT definitely, but you need to be very careful to involve the final customer, which in this case, a lot of it's going to be operations, people, and planning. Those are the two main guys. You have to involve them because they should have a say as to what they want to see, what kind of data they want to analyze. So that's really for my part, and it's more some of the obstacles that I see in this. And I think, Andrew, you want to add to that?
Yes, I would like to add some comments from the current architecture point of view. Current architecture really is, based on the PCN or ESS network, and then people, intend to develop the solution based on those structure and move to the IT layers, which is business layers. And still use a lot of the client server technology. That's what most software developed based on this kind of mindset, those architecture, even today, okay? And also is based on the certain functions, all right? For instance, process software will be different than the pipeline software. Pipeline software will be different than control software, and advanced control software, and also is different than the other simulation software. And even the simulation, you have a state dynamic, transient, all kinds. And all the software company provided the tools is based on their functions or mindset, try to, solve the particular problem. But horizontally, there's no communication among them. But when we talk about, as today, 21st century, we want to build the virtual asset network to represent the real world behaviors, and then all sorts of problem immediately is happened in the front of the users, and the connectivity, structure, architecture, and how you going to all those problems, how you going to solve it, right? So those are the difficulties. Those are really the difficulties. So basically, how you going to organize all those different function software solutions and become the tools can support digital twin, virtual asset, in the future, IIoT, and ultimately for autonomous operation. That is really, we see the problems, these difficulties from architecture point of view. Okay.
Yeah, and as you kind of related to the future, right? What in your eyes are some of the key functions that are, important and need to be included as part of this, this new digital virtual asset platform? What might be some of these key functions as you guys see them?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, the current system and what we think about the future system should look like, the key is most people right now, they still try to develop the solution based on the PCN network or operation network. And even they move to the business layer, or you can call it IT layers. And the function still is same as the way they design based on the client server type of operation. What really should be changed for the future is the move to the business layer. That's correct, okay? And what we really need is let the software to software can be organized based on the natural, the real world workflow. And that requires the two things I think are emphasized here. We have to think about deeply is one is how the IT OT going to be connected and integrated. Another thing is most important. The second one is even among the OT to OT. OT means is a solution to solution integrated based on the functions. The function, some solution is in the bottom layer, and some solution in the control layer, some solution is in the advanced control, okay? And also the function different. Some aim on the just to help the control, like a tune controllers, and some is for optimization. Some is for particular equipment or process sector optimization. All those things could be organized together. And in the past, all the solutions designed based on the certain function or process function, production function, okay, or based on certain discipline. But that's a history, right? And we didn't see those kind of things is changing. Move to the integrated layers yet. Okay, so in the future, if based on existing platform is difficult to achieve, then move to the business layer and give the ability for the IT, OT, and even function-to-function integration become, can be successfully achieved. The reason is you away from the PCN network, you away from the security concern, and allow you have the parallel, like a vertical integration, virtual asset platform, so you can do the plug and play and practice, and then you can engage different vendors and to integrate them together to reflect the real world production needs. Okay, real world production, they don't distinguish the discipline. And the discipline is a human being created based on the knowledge sectors. And the real world are all integrated. And how we're going to reflect that behavior and the parallel virtual asset network can be achieved that and can be allowed people to practice it. And that is the future. So that's what we call the 21st century. So number one, we should have the software as the service from end to end. End means is from production, not follow the production, not follow is the software itself. And it follow the production workflow and maybe upstream, wearable is certain software need to communicate with the facility, certain software, and also need to communicate with the control optimization software. So this is really the workflow, and you need to break this functional silo and build the software as the what we call SaaS, all right, software as the service. And I know one company is difficult to do it, but some IT type of company can do it. All right, this is mainly is you're not changing the core of the software. Mainly is changing the connectivity. All right, so this is something, and we think is the key function missing at this moment, and can be someone do it and really improve help the industry for the digital vertical platform. This is one thing. Of course, then most important is deep learning, machine learning, AI is another aspect should be widely applied. Because currently the most difficult to do is because most function solution is based on the rigorous simulation, a rigorous mathematics model or methods. It is difficult to have the rigorous from sector A to sector B to sector C, right? If they are different perspective of the behaviors, okay, like a reservoir simulation, even the time frame is different than the real time in facility operation. So how are you going to solve that? And we believe the deep learning, machine learning methods and the AI down the road, and those methods is going to greatly help to provide the key functions can be across the board of the analysis tools for for the those kind of design or new architecture design. Okay. Another most important thing is a lot of people complain, when they want to do the digital transformation or want to do the solutions, they don't have the data. And in the older days, they always say garbage in, garbage out. Basically, you through the assumption data, then you have the assumption values way off the real world is not accurate at all. So how, at these days, in the 21st century, I think we can solve this thing because we have more tools, technology changed significantly, and we can have the more ways to make it more accurate. One of the important things is robotics, as I mentioned in the earlier, and the robotics is acting as the air, nose, hands, foot, eyes, to look at the lower level, okay, which is the unit operation and the level 1 instrument, okay, layers. And those 2 layers has a lot of information, hasn't getting to the control layers, getting to the database yet, okay? Because, a lot of is associated with the sensors, and also associated with the cost of the building the plant or the maintain the facility. So that's the reason we would like to use the robotics to extract the information or manage the information for the bottom layers, like the equipment, the unit operation layers, and then the virtual sensor, which is simulation models, can provide all sorts of the parameters, and not just for the area hasn't measured, for those physical parameters, and also for a lot of analysis parameters or engineering parameters.
Right.
And those are very critical. And you see, if we have these 2 methods widely applied as the key functions, and then we can gather a lot of data to support this overall IT/OT and the functional integration success, all right? And also make the machine learning AI model will be more accurate. So basically, this is overall our idea. So, but overall, you have real world from a bottom 0 all the way to the level 0 to the level 4. On the top, you have the business layer, you have the database connected, and then you have the vertical integrated the virtual asset framework. You also have the mimic of the bottom layer, level 0 unit operation, which is the robotics application, and the level 2 represent your facility with the virtual sensor models. And we call it virtual sensor model, but you also can be say the facility simulation models. And on the top, we have the control modular. All right, control means you can have the SCADA, DCS, and also even advanced controller. And advanced controller, they have a lot of the even the tuning software, whatever. Right now they all run independently. Okay, so once you have this vertical, you can all integrate together, and with the advanced workflow optimization, all sorts of the software for the different business and the process production sectors can be utilized, and then reach to the IT layers. All right, then you can have this backbone of the virtual asset platform and for the vertical integration, and that is very essential for the future IIoT application. IoT is the things talk to things, equipment talk to equipment. How are you going to talk? All right. And then you also have the control network there. And the control guys may not want you to talk because you talk may be messed up at the control in somehow. All right. So someone has automated control or supervise all those IIoT applications. And currently, there's no clear picture yet. All right, that's we just thinking about that. So, but overall, the virtual asset, real asset, and the gotta be mimic layer to layer. That is critical. And even to build this, need to take time. All right, and there's a lot of standards that need to be developed.
Right.
Yeah.
Ed, I don't know. Do you have any additional comments or?
No, I think Henry said it all very nicely. No.
Okay. Well, one of the things is that as you work with customers, right, and you start thinking about this journey that they're going forward with, are there areas that you feel that they should focus on that would be a quick win, if you will, to deploy this type of architecture? Are there some key areas that you would say, you know, these are the target areas that you could help them with regarding their strategy, and how do they deploy this type of platform?
Yes.
I would say that, Todd, based on that question, I would say that whatever operating company out there is thinking about implementing this, and I don't want, this is going to sound kind of corny, do not do this at home. We are professional people. And it sounds kind of corny and funny, but it's the truth. Uh, Again, there's a lot of confusion out there. I would highly advise, and this is going to sound like a commercial, please call Birlasoft. Please call us. We'd be more than happy to come and begin a dialogue with you. Why? Uh, it's so easy to just go the wrong path, to choose the wrong architecture. Henry has mentioned it over and over, the problems when you do this, because this is going to hinder your development. This is going to make it very costly. So I would say, first of all, think what you want. And like the easiest win is go with a model-based application. What do I mean by that? Well, most systems out there, they already have a system that captures the data, right? Whether it be SCADA or whatever, and then it goes to some database where they store the variables. Whatever the size of the company, some do a better job than others, but they have some instruments measuring variables. So that's number one. You need to have that. And number two is, don't worry about being so very sophisticated. You need to start simple. And starting simple is, you probably already have a model, a first principles model, whether it be HISIS or Olga or something from DNVGL, some pipeline model, some type of simulation. You already probably have that. So the
Right.
thing would be to integrate that model and have it run continuously. Now that model can be steady state, and most operating companies, that's what they're going to have, steady state. Some may have a transient model, and that's what we would really like to see, because with a transient model, now you can look at performance against time, because not everything is ideal in the world. So that would be the first thing. Have some type of database where you're capturing data from your instruments, from your equipment, and have a working model. Do the integration. Now, just alone on that simple thing, where you're probably gathering flow rates, temperatures, pressures, compositions, maybe some type of performance from some type of equipment like pumps or compressors. So again, be simple. You're gonna now, after that, when you take that output and with the information also from your database, so you're gonna go and create some dashboards. So create some simple dashboards. From there, right away, you're gonna be seeing a lot of data that you never, or performances that you cannot explain or didn't know were happening. So that's where maybe you start customizing your dashboards, and you can also start making calculations there, of trying to calculate what is the benefit of having this tool, where you can base it on production, base it on efficiencies, and try to put there some type of functionality on your dashboards as the dollars and cents benefit. Remember, that's going to be very important. We talked a lot about technology here, about architecture, all these different things. But again, and I'm not going to take my finger off of this, it's very important that you justify economically the benefit. Why? Because you are going to get some funding or the green light from upper management to be able to implement this. And as simple as you may do it, it has an associated cost. So that's where I would start. Once you set up something simple like this, you will see now that you're going to have this data. It's going to be kind of like analyzed through your dashboard, making it easy for you to see the behavior and trends of things. As you know, in years behind, when we as engineers, and I'm going to go back all the way to the early 90s, when we had the ability to get all this data, engineers, we would get tons and tons and tons of data. And we were like really giddy about this. But the problem was we would get so much data and it would take us so much time to extract it and put it in spreadsheets and have it there. And then we would have so very little time to analyze it. So whenever we had any type of event we didn't have the time to analyze this. Why? Because the data was not in the proper format. So that's
Right.
how I would start. Start simple, and from there you can go to artificial intelligence, you can go to robotics, all the things that Henry has explained.
Henry, do you have any additional comments you want to add before we kind of wrap up here?
Yes, I have some comments. Regarding the area, what we can think about to start right away is I believe we can utilize whatever the companies want to digitize their facility. And the number one is we can help with the Birlasoft, we can help planning for the vertical integrated virtual asset framework and can build virtual sensor model. And most facilities already have the model. Doesn't matter status, dynamic, or transient. They already have it. And it used to be the model maybe for the design, maybe just for the process troubleshooting. But all those models can be utilized. All those investment can be utilized. And based on that, can transient those model become either machine learning model or the rigorous model, but mainly represent the entire process or entire facility. That's one thing. Another second is some company, we hope, can considering to establish robotics communication interface standards, because we know currently the people who work on the robotics in our industry mainly focus on the interface inspection area and the data collecting and has their own standards. Probably use OPC or something else, which is OPC the standard. The interface as a standard is not that so reliable. The model-based integration, the control analysis is something can be done. And right now in our practice, we saw it, okay? Once they move to the business layer, everyone move to the business layer, all right? From a client server to the business layer. And but it's still based on their own function, like a controller tuning, and the software moved to the business layer is just connected to the database. They say their job is done. But your controller tuning is not just supposed to support for the operation. You also supposed to support the digital transformation, support the digital twin establishment. And we don't see that happen yet, okay? So in the advanced modular application, what I mean is any like advanced control, advanced analysis tools, and they move to the business layer. Again, they didn't connect it to the virtual sensor model. They didn't connect it to the controller tuning model or whatever, optimization model. So the current online integration, real-time integration solutions, and we already did a lot, and we believe we are the pioneer for practice this for the largest scope of integration support of the IOC. Even this practice, we look back and is still cannot support the current vision of the vertical integration. All right, all those areas can be improved quickly, and the machine learning AI application. There's a lot of people mentioning, but current application still is think about the individual function or individual areas, and there's no cross-board based on the process production and to give the from end to end of that consideration yet. The new database, new data interface technology, currently most people rely on the OPC, or even the second version, the UOPC. And what is the new data interface technology available here? And I believe the IT, cyber security, they probably have the best technology we haven't learned yet. We probably haven't think about the move to the OT layer yet. And all those areas can be improved. And for the future, and the digital twin should including the fluid behavior, not just physical equipment behavior. And for the IIoT, and need to also think about that, how to link to the 5G. This is an earlier stage, but down the road, I would say next 10 to 15 years, IIoT will play the important role in our process plant, process facility, production facility.
Right.
And that is critical. We have to think about ahead, okay? And the 5G is already there. And but how to move to our industry, and we hope some company can leading on that. And in my mind, it's not the operator companies. Operator company, they don't have sufficient OC in this area. I believe really those company is either IT company or high-tech companies, okay? IIoT vertical. Oh, okay. Another thing is the engineering design. So far, for the digital transformation for engineering firm, what they're thinking is to update their document information, everything go to database, which is good, like a specs, data sheet, drawings, whatever. Okay, calculations, which is good. But have they already thinking about when they build a plan, also should have virtual asset platform established at the same time? Probably not. I don't see anyone doing that, all right? We also need to change the mindset, change the view how to do the design, all right?
Right.
And IIoT, IT and OT vertical integration is very critical. It is the future enterprise application backbone. Once you have that, to develop an IOC, integrated operation center, decision supporting center, remote operation, all right, and virtual asset for the existing facility. Based on the virtual asset, you can try different scenario. That all become so easier. But we are maybe 20% ahead of this journey, right? In this journey, right? And but we may see the 50% ahead of this journey during this process. But how are we going to achieve 70, 75, 80% to achieve this kind of vision and the goal? And I think next 10, 15 years is very critical from now on.
Well, I think, in kind of wrapping things up, you kind of alluded to, or you're talking about what we initially started the whole webinar series around, is what is the 10-year, 15-year future look like around these virtual assets. And we talked, a little bit about the current architecture in our webinar too. And today we're talking about, the future network architecture around that. So, it is a big journey, if you will, right? And I really appreciate you two participating in this, because I think as people go back and look at the other webinars and today's, they're going to see a lot of the insight and value that you bring to, as could be a part of their journey. And so, I really appreciate your time and effort and insight, and as we've gone through these webinars. Now we have one more webinar that's coming up, and it's going to be really the roadmap, right? It's going to, there's a process, right, that it needs to be followed to get there. And so that's what the fourth and final webinar is going to talk about, is this roadmap to get there. But for everybody that's joined us today, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure there's been a lot of insight here that's been valuable to you. Henry and Ed mentioned earlier that they've got a lot of experience. So if any of you want to engage with us, contact me, and we'll be able to sit down with you, kind of talk about your where you're at today, and help you figure out what's your next step. And I think I like the point what was made earlier. It's about quick wins, right? It's about finding an area that we can quickly identify and help see some value as part of your strategy. So other than that, Candace, I'll turn it back to you. And once again, thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Thanks.
We appreciate everyone attending today and hope you found this webinar valuable. A special thank you to our panelists, Henry, Ed, and Todd, for sharing your perspectives. For those with questions not covered today, we will follow up by email. Be sure to watch for an invitation to the next webinar, continuing today's discussion addressing the how. What is the path to get there, and a roadmap-based approach that drives real value and outcomes around your digital transformation strategy. Again, thank you for attending today's event. We hope to see you at our next webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.